Hi everyone, you're watching the Asian American Herald, a new media network featuring the Asian Americans across the United States. My name is Shruti Natanmai, and I'm a student at the Fashion Institute of Technology, writer and creative who's born and raised in the Capital Region. This evening, I'm super excited to speak with Will Mun, a filmmaker and film student at the Fashion Institute of Technology. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, Will. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. This is super cool.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So I'd like to start by asking you to take a minute to introduce yourself a little bit more and tell our viewers about your background, like what are some of your interests, where'd you grow up?
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'm William Munn. I go by Will. I am a filmmaker and student at the Fashion Institute of Technology, not to be a broken record. But I'm also an illustrator. And yeah, I mean, most everything in my life just revolves around like filmmaking and the arts. So not much to say there, but I like long walks on the beach, fried chicken, all about that.
Very
But
good
yeah.
answer.
But I am a New York native, grew up born and raised in Queens, New York, still am here. And yeah, like I feel like New York is just like the perfect place for me. It has like everything that I like anyway. It has really good food. I'm gonna mention food so many times. So
No, that's very accurate. It does have very good food. A lot of options too. A lot of options.
Definitely.
So I guess what first piqued your interest in film and media? Is there a certain element to storytelling that kind of fascinates you the most? And while you answer that, I'm going to play some of your clips of your work.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. But yeah, so I feel like I first really started caring about film when I saw this film called Cloud Atlas, directed by the Wachowskis and Tom Tykwer, back in 2012. So this was like during my junior high school years, the most formative years, I guess. And so just something about how there's this sense of humanity that was told throughout the film. It's a polarizing film, so whether or not you like it is up to you. For me though, it was really groundbreaking and it really changed my life and in understanding how people can be perceived, how people can interact with each other. I think a huge part of that is because the cast is just so wide and diverse. The film is problematic here and there. I think it's a little outdated with some of the things they do, but I think the overall message is just really meaningful and powerful. And I don't think I ever saw a film like that at the time. Growing up, I really loved animated films. Anything silly, fun, anything with a great sense of humor, I just really gravitated towards. And I think just being able to like have that feeling, that profound like movement within you from watching something, like really piqued my interest growing up. And I knew that I wanted to do something with that, like that, in whatever art I make.
Yeah. So I guess aside from this one film, is there a certain director or actor or even writer that's influenced you a lot in your work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So another thing about me is that I'm a big horror lover. I'm trying to be like a more like fully committed horror filmmaker. But Guillermo del Toro like really changed my life as well. His films were some of the earliest ones I've ever seen, like early horror films that I wasn't just naturally like immediately terrified by, but more so intrigued by, because the way that he tells his stories is through like a fairy tale narrative. And so like I really love him. The Wachowskis are making some really weird, inclusive, amazing, beautiful stuff. So I really love their work as well. And Bong Joon-ho is also a favorite of mine. His film, The Host, is also a very early South Korean horror film I saw. And I mean, at the time I was terrified and I would always be watching the film like this. But
Yeah.
but now I'm like, haha, that's funny. I see what he did there. So.
Yeah. So what drew you to horror if you were terrified of it in the beginning?
A morbid curiosity. No, but like honestly, like I started off just watching like gory films. I think that kids just kind of gravitate towards the things that their parents were like, you shouldn't watch this. Like this is no for you. And that's for me. I kind of liked having nightmares a little bit because they were kind of like fun to remember and tell other people. I think there's this whole aspect of just like recounting scary stories, or even just like, hey, I saw this movie and some really scary stuff happens, and let me tell you what it is,
Mm-hmm.
And so being in charge of that narrative, whether it's just like relaying what you heard, or just being able to have like that pride in saying my subconscious made this up. Like that was really fun for me, and so I just wanted to like get a better understanding of like what other people were scared of,
Yeah.
and how I could be like scared as well. I guess it's a
Yeah,
thrill. It's definitely thrilling.
for sure. And I think, like you mentioned earlier, I guess when people say horror, for me, before I do not watch a lot of horror, and I think when I hear that word, what I first think of are like jump scares and things like that, and just like excessive amounts of gore. But like you said, horror can be funny, and there's so many different elements that go into making a horror film that I feel like aren't talked about or like considered enough.
Hmm. No, I totally agree, and it's kind of cool with the stuff that you're saying nowadays too. There's like this a whole bunch of like genre blending, like horror comedies too.
Yeah.
like like the scary movie franchise like really stuck with me growing up as well. And so, it's funny just being able to like feel like this adrenaline rush, but also like have like laugh, have a sense of like
Hmm.
laughter after as well.
Hmm. I think the most recent movie that I can think of is Ready or Not. Did you see that one?
Oh my gosh.
Um, I don't know. I guess I'm not sure. I'm not even sure what genre that is, but it was definitely a mix of gore and comedy, and it was so gory that it was funny. And I
Mhm.
think just that balance is super interesting. And yeah, yeah, that's definitely. Do you hope to like explore that route and kind of blend comedy with or other genres with horror?
I think so. I think horror by itself is at least a lot of the tropes in horror are just so stupid. Like I mean that's why we see a lot of films like satirizing all that and parodying it. So
Hmm.
I think just it just inherently it is a really funny thing to think about. Like a guy who like kills people in their dreams. It's so absurd, like all these different horror characters exist and all that. So I mean,
Right.
I would love to answer your question. Yeah, I would totally love to do something like that in the future. I think I need to work on my funny bone a bit, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
So, what challenges have you faced as an Asian American filmmaker in an industry that's kind of notorious for not being the most inclusive? Did you have any doubts when coming to FIT as a film major, even before making it?
Mhm. Well, so I am a queer Korean American, and just growing up, I always liked the arts, mainly like illustration, and theater, and film. Kind of like it took some time to grow on me, so I didn't go to FIT necessarily expecting myself to like stick with this, but more
Hmm.
so like maybe because I'll be in an artistic environment, I'll be surrounded by a whole bunch of other things I like, and I think filmmaking would just be like a fun avenue to just really hone in on because I think it's always been like a hidden passion of mine growing up, but I just didn't really work on it. And I think a large part of that is because there's this lack of visibility and representation for Asian Americans on screen and behind the scenes as well. Like you can name like five white um, producers and directors from the top of your head like pretty easily, I'd imagine. But it can't really be the same said the same for Asian Americans, and not just like Korean filmmakers, but I'm also talking about like South Asian filmmakers as well. And so because of that, I definitely want to change that. I don't know how much change I can do, but I'm definitely trying to like be a part of that movement, and I think there's been a movement going on that is really inspiring. And so, yeah.
Do you feel that the lack of representation kind of discouraged you or made you hesitate to become a filmmaker or just a part of this industry?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And it's something that, like your peers or your family members will remind you as well. Not trying, and it's not from them trying to be like, "Hey, your dream sucks. Do something else," but more so just being realistic about it too. And I think a balance of that is needed, but also I think there's a reason why our friends and family warn us about this type of stuff, and it's because we're just not there.
Hmm.
So like I know like if I have kids ever growing up and they want to do something like this, I would totally be like, go for it. Like your dad and your friends are and his friends are doing it, so why not?
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you feel that the entertainment industry is becoming more inclusive both on the screen and behind the screen, or do you feel that it's kind of just stagnant right now?
Hmm. Well, with COVID going on, I haven't been too in the loop of everything going on. I'm not the most like in the industry either, so I'm still like getting sneak peeks here and there. But
Yeah.
I think like before everything that was happening as well, like even right before the pandemic, like really hit us. Parasite won Best Picture at the Oscars. How much you really care about the Oscars is up to you, but it's still like for a foreign language film to get Best Picture on this like international like this national platform and everything like that. Like that was so inspiring. I remember
Mhm.
like kind of tearing up when I saw that live, and this was like the first time I checked out the Oscars live in like 5 years. So, and even stuff like Crazy Rich Asians, a lot of Netflix shows too, like to all the boys series franchise, and what's the other one? Never Have I Ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they just start like popping up, and it's not even like because they were being made like when Parasite was getting buzz. It was because like these Asian American filmmakers were like really working on it and contributed to it like over the years. So
Mhm.
I think it's getting better. I don't think we're there yet, especially. I mean, the state of like how a lot of people view Asian Americans in general in this country is really messed up right now. But at least in the entertainment industry, I think it's getting a little better.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even what I've noticed is I feel like even before Asian American representation on the screen, I mean, we're behind the screen is a whole different story, but at least on the screen, I feel like it was kind of restrained to specific genres. And I'd never really seen Asian American representation in, say, a romantic comedy
Hmm.
and things like that. And I think the fact that that's popping up too is also um, shows progress. Even if it's slight progress, it's still progress, which is good to see. Or yeah, like you said, Never Have I Ever is it's just it's a sitcom essentially, sort of, and it's just showcasing like adolescence, but through the lens of a South Asian 15-year-old, which is I thought was super cool to see.
No, I loved it. Like if I had that in my high school years, not to sound like I'm old or anything, but like if I had that like maybe
In
like
my
5 years
high
ago,
school years.
yeah, like if I had that like 5 years ago, I would
Yeah.
have been so I would have been so happy.
Yeah. And the it had a lot of positive response, which it just goes to show. I don't know. I feel like there was this kind of stigma surrounding Asian American representation on screen, and just the fact that it got such all of these shows, even To All the Boys
Mm.
I've loved in that franchise, and got such positive response, just goes to show that I don't know, like it's I think people are waiting for that. Like people want to see that, want to see more of that. Um,
Oh, definitely. And it's funny too. I remember when Crazy Rich Asians came out, like there was a lot of buzz about like, will this even like break even at the box office? Will people even
mhm.
show up and watch? And I remember seeing like a lot of people just talking a lot on social media about fellow Asians, we have to go watch this and support it. And guess what? They came and they conquered. So
Yeah, I cannot even tell you the amount of times I've seen that movie. Like I cannot. Like it's embarrassing how many times I've seen that movie. At least the wedding scene where the
oh yeah.
water floods the aisle. Yeah, I've seen it
Mhm.
an embarrassing amount of times, but it's very good.
I don't blame you.
So I guess what advice do you have for POC filmmakers who are just starting out or perhaps a little bit intimidated by the industry or are just hesitant to even start?
Mhm. Yeah, well, it's funny because I feel like I mean, I am 21 years old. I have a lot to learn and do myself. But I think the advice that I've received and that I've like follow to just keep doing whatever I'm doing now is really just about like finding your own community within the people that you trust, like building that network. Because I think as a person of color and a queer person of color, it's really easy to feel isolated and to feel like your experiences are, like super unrelatable or no one will really understand. And, to an extent, that's true. We're all human. But at the same time, it's like, hey, we're all ranting on Twitter about these things that are happening in our lives. Let's make something out of it.
Yeah.
So at school, I formed a little art collective with my friends, and we called it Spotlight FIT. Spotlight to shine the spotlight on BIPOC artists at our school, and hopefully just outside of our school as we continue working at our collective. And like through this little group that we made, I felt so supported, and I felt so, like, for lack of better words, normal. Just being able to, like, I don't have to worry about like wondering if my art will be viewed a certain type of way, because I knew that I had like a certain type of audience and a certain group of people that I can work with, and we can just make the things that really matter to us while still making sure to provide some representation for people like us. And so, like I didn't do anything by myself, I mean, here and there, yeah, like a couple of projects, but the things that really mattered to me in the end were all collaborative efforts, just like filmmaking in general, really.
Yeah.
So to all the people who are intimidated and stuff like that, there are going to be a lot more people like you. And let's say if you're going to school for something like this, maybe if not in your school, then in another school. I've met other Asian filmmakers in different schools, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I talk to them more than people in my own school now.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And how have you found that collaboration during this particular time? Like, how have you been going about, I guess, creating things, or have you with other people?
Yeah, so it's funny because I've never been like the most social person to begin with. So during this time, it's like, oh, great, let's double down on that. But I think, like every creative just wants to make something in the end, and if you just really want it, then you'll just reach out to people about it. Over the summer, like around June 2020, I just like hit up some friends, and they hit me up too. I think it was their idea first to begin with, actually. And they just want to make a little like anthology film together with just our phones and stuff like that. And so, if as long as it's not even just about like reaching out. If you have the opportunity to like agree or take on an opportunity as well, like I think you just have to be very open-minded about it and just go for it.
Yeah. And are you still working with Spotlight, and do you have anything planned for the future?
Yeah. So we're Spotlight is still up and running. It is my final year at FIT. So, but we're working on getting some big projects done. But we're also like passing on the torch to some underclassmen. But for now, yeah, a lot of the stuff that we initially started doing before the pandemic was like having in-school events like an exhibition and screening. So we're trying to push that to a more digital platform. So with stuff like zines to like panel discussions with some interesting, notable people of color in the industry. So yeah, we're looking forward to that, and we'll definitely be like spreading the news once that happens.
That's awesome. And do you have an Instagram account that people can follow, or any other social media?
Yeah, so my Instagram account it's not my full name, which I really should change it to that, but I'm too stubborn with my current handle. But it is Greylation, GREYELATION. Yeah, I mainly just share film stuff, but occasionally some cute selfies.
As you should. Good balance.
Yes.
Yeah, so looking forward, I guess, what are you most excited to work on or explore? Even it can be in relation to film or outside of film, like illustration and things like that, like you mentioned, but just what are you excited to work on?
Well, for my senior thesis film, I'm working on a short horror film, as expected. Like really like
brand.
Yeah. But it's kind of like a culmination of like everything that I've been trying to like figure out about myself over the past couple of years. I don't think by any means it's going to be like a magnum opus or anything, but I think it's going to be a great stepping stone in trying to make more films like that and provide a new like provide a new narrative in the horror genre that maybe we're not too used to seeing. And
Mhm.
so I definitely want to play with that. Just looking forward to as well. I've been dabbling a lot with animation, and so growing up loving these cartoons. It's funny. It's like a full circle moment where I'm trying to make these maybe not cartoons, but like animations as well.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm definitely focusing a lot on just like the artistic side of filmmaking as well, and
Hmm.
not so focused on like just creating like a three act like narrative or anything like that, but just
Right.
some fun stuff here and there as well.
Right. And yeah, so tell us a bit more about your thesis, Phil. What is I guess, what is your process for working on that?
Mhm. A lot of procrastination and cups of coffee. No, but in all seriousness,
We've all been there. I'm still there, so I understand.
Mhm. Well, it's just like it's funny. I feel like I act on ideas that I may have had like hidden on my iPhone's notes apps like a couple years ago. Just
Yeah.
and it's still going. So maybe like an idea I write down today, like I'll work on like 2 years from now. I mean, probably not, but like I'll try to make stuff more in the moment. But this was an idea that I had for a while. It was just in relation. It was inspired by my coming out experience and
Hmm.
process. And so of course, something I like to joke about a lot is that LGBT films and horror films are very similar in a lot of ways, and coming out is like a great like thing that is shared between those two genres because like everything that the person may feel in their process really does feel like a horror film.
Hmm.
And so this is a film about a young woman who is traumatized by the death of her younger brother after he almost outed her. And so there's a lot of emotions to play with there, a lot of feelings. It's definitely a psychological horror, just focusing a lot on what this main character has to deal with and also just how she's coping with everything. Is she coping with everything? Who knows? Well, I do, but but
Never find out later.
exactly. And
Yes.
in terms of the process, a lot of it is just like talking that with other people, getting advice. I know I talked with my own sister about this film because I think her experience can also like shed some light to this main character. I talked with other queer people to get their experiences that they felt comfortable sharing with me, and
Mhm.
I shared with my writer friends as well, such as you. And I know like we talked before about my idea and like how we can workshop it, and it's been all very helpful. And like that's why I love filmmaking. And it's all collaborative, and it makes me like get out of my shell. Like thank God. If I wasn't doing this, I'd just be like a couch potato.
Yeah. No, I feel that. And yeah, I think it's always, I think that's my favorite part of making anything or writing anything, just like hearing what other people have to say about it or what they even take from it. Because I mean, films and writing and it's so subjective. So
Mhm.
it's always interesting to see what different people take from just one piece of work.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a lot of fun, and I wish you the best of luck on your thesis and your exploration of horror. I'm sure it'll be very fun. And thank you everyone else for joining us this evening on the Asian American Herald. I'm Shruthina Tanmai, and our wonderful guest for today was Will Moon. Please send us your story ideas and look for the recording of this show on our Facebook page. Have a good evening and thank you again.
Have a great evening. Thank you.